I flew back to London from Cape Town the next night. Tissues and crying, and then I thought, look, I've got to get a grip here and do something useful for Diana, and I decided the first thing that needed to be done was to find somebody to write and deliver the eulogy.
There is a man in England who has been sitting on one of the most valuable archives in modern history for nearly 3 decades. Private home movies, handwritten diaries, page after page in Diana's own hand, unseen photographs, footage of a princess before the world ever knew her name. Through every documentary, anniversary, streaming deal, and television proposal, he has never opened that vault. Not for money, not for legacy, and not for the countless producers who have approached him since September 1997. His name is Charles Spencer, the 9th Earl Spencer, Diana's younger brother, and until recently, many people had almost forgotten about him. That silence is about to end. Reports claim Charles Spencer recently rejected a Netflix proposal with just 4 words, and those words have sparked discussion across royal circles. But this story is about far more than a rejected documentary. Tonight you'll hear about the proposal, the private archive, the guilt that has reportedly shaped many of his decisions since Diana's funeral, the letter reportedly sent to Prince William, and the question few people are asking: what happens now that Diana's brother has finally stepped forward? Stay with me, because this story has many layers. Before we continue, who exactly is Charles Spencer? When was the last time you thought about him? Not Diana, not William, not Harry. Charles Spencer. For many people, one moment immediately comes to mind: Westminster Abbey, September 6, 1997. Nearly 2 billion people watched as a young man walked to the lectern and delivered one of the most emotional speeches of that generation. His words about grief, love, and protecting Diana's memory echoed around the world. He made a promise that day. He vowed Diana's sons would be raised with warmth and imagination, and that her family would help protect them. Then he quietly returned to Northamptonshire, disappearing from public attention. That long silence is exactly what makes today's story so remarkable. Charles Spencer has spent almost 30 years doing something very few people connected to Diana have managed to do. He kept his promise. While Diana's image appeared on magazine covers, documentaries, museum exhibitions, books, and countless television specials, Charles Spencer refused to contribute his private collection. Every Diana documentary has largely relied on the same publicly available footage and familiar photographs. He has never loaned his original home videos, diaries, or private photographs to broadcasters or streaming companies. Not to the BBC, ITV, Netflix, Amazon, or American television networks. So ask yourself one question: why? Why would someone refuse opportunities worth enormous amounts of money for nearly 3 decades? That question explains everything that follows. Once you understand what has driven Charles Spencer's silence, his reported response to the recent documentary proposal begins to look very different. It may not have been a simple rejection. It may have reflected a deeply personal commitment to protecting his sister's memory. The story may have begun with something that seemed small. At the royal wedding reception in May 2018, Meghan Markle wore Diana's famous aquamarine ring. For Charles Spencer, it may have looked like a touching tribute. Harry's new wife was honoring Diana on one of the biggest days of her own life. Then more pieces of Diana's jewelry appeared over time. The butterfly earrings, the Cartier tank watch, gold bracelets, one appearance after another, often during major public events where photographers were guaranteed to be present. To be fair, no one can know the intention behind those choices. They may simply have been sincere tributes to Diana. Meghan had joined one of the world's most complicated royal families, and honoring Harry's mother could naturally have been meaningful. But another question has often been raised: at what point does tribute begin to look like a recurring pattern? Once may be a coincidence. Twice may become tradition. Repeated appearances at major public moments naturally attracted attention. For observers at Althorp, where Diana grew up, those moments may have been viewed differently. Whether fairly or unfairly, many believe that was when the atmosphere reportedly began to change. Then came March 2021. The Oprah interview became one of the most talked-about television events in years. Reports have suggested Charles Spencer watched it from Althorp, the family home where Diana spent much of her childhood. The interview featured soft lighting, an intimate setting, and one woman describing feelings of isolation inside the royal institution. For many viewers familiar with Diana's story, the similarities to the 1995 Panorama interview were impossible to ignore. a royal woman speaking publicly about personal struggles after feeling unheard within the institution. There was, however, one major difference. Diana gave her interview while still living inside the royal system, with her future uncertain. The Oprah interview took place after Harry and Meghan had left royal duties and relocated to California. Whatever conclusions people reached, reports suggest Charles Spencer did not view the interview as simply another tribute to his sister. And that leads to perhaps the most painful chapter of all. According to long-standing accounts, Charles Spencer was the person who first introduced Diana to Martin Bashir, the journalist behind the 1995 Panorama interview. Years later, investigations concluded that Bashir secured that interview using forged documents and deceptive tactics. Fake bank statements and misleading claims reportedly helped convince Diana that people close to her could not be trusted. The controversy surrounding that interview became one of the biggest media scandals in British broadcasting history. If those accounts are correct, Charles Spencer later realized that he had unknowingly helped open the door to one of the most painful experiences of his sister's life. Imagine carrying that burden. You spend years believing you were protecting someone you loved. You stand before billions of people promising to defend her family. Then, years later, you learn that one of the defining media moments of her life happened after an introduction you innocently helped arrange. Whether fairly or unfairly, many believe that realization changed the way Charles Spencer viewed every documentary proposal, every interview request, and every attempt to revisit Diana's story. Perhaps that explains why the archive has remained locked for nearly 30 years. Everything since then has reportedly been an act of atonement. The sealed archives, the repeated refusals, the decision to bury Diana at Althorpe rather than place her resting place under royal control, the unseen home movies, and the handwritten diaries that remain private. For nearly 30 years, Charles Spencer has made sure nothing like the Panorama interview could happen to Diana again. In doing so, he has accomplished something rare. He protected Diana's mystery. There is still a private Diana the public has never seen, an unguarded version that survives only because one man has spent decades saying no. Imagine sitting in his position. After turning down every network, publisher, and production company for almost 3 decades, another proposal suddenly arrives. The pitch, and why Charles Spencer reportedly called it a joke. According to reports, the proposal centered on a major documentary marking the 30th anniversary of Diana's death in 2027. It was presented as the definitive film about her life, reportedly fronted by Prince Harry and backed by a substantial Netflix budget. On the surface, it sounded like a tribute, but reports claimed the project requested something far more significant. The producers reportedly wanted access to Althorpe, Diana's childhood home, the grounds, the lake, and the island where she is buried. They also reportedly requested Diana's handwritten diaries and private home movies that have never been released publicly. Without those materials, it would have been another documentary using familiar archive footage. With them, it could have become the most complete Diana documentary ever produced. There was reportedly another key element. According to reports, the project intended to draw strong comparisons between Diana's struggles with the royal institution and Meghan Markle's experiences, presenting Meghan as continuing Diana's legacy. Imagine how Charles Spencer may have viewed that proposal. He had already watched Diana's jewelry appear during major public moments. He had seen the Oprah interview, the Netflix documentary, and years of public comparisons between Meghan and Diana. Now the proposal reportedly asked for the family's private archive as well. His reported response became 4 simple words. Is this a joke? Those words, if accurately reported, reflected far more than disagreement. They represented decades of protecting Diana's private legacy. To understand why this documentary may have mattered so much, it helps to examine Harry and Meghan's media business during early 2026. Their Netflix partnership was reportedly approaching an uncertain future. Their lifestyle series, With Love Meghan, received mixed to negative reviews across much of the British press. Several newspapers criticized the program for lacking substance, while even publications generally considered sympathetic offered disappointing reviews. The overall reception raised fresh questions about future projects. Meanwhile, their first Netflix documentary, Harry and Meghan, remained one of the platform's biggest documentary debuts. Later productions, including Heart of Invictus, Polo, and With Love, Meghan, received noticeably less attention. Many commentators argued the audience consistently showed the strongest interest whenever projects centered on royal family stories and Diana's legacy. The Netflix agreement was reportedly nearing its conclusion, while Spotify had already ended its partnership. Their lifestyle business also faced questions about long-term momentum. Viewed through that lens, a major Diana documentary would have represented one of the biggest projects available. Whether or not that interpretation is fair, some commentators viewed the proposal as an attempt to reconnect with the story that had consistently attracted the largest audiences. The broader question goes beyond one documentary. When Harry and Meghan stepped back from royal duties, they needed to establish an independent public identity. Diana's memory naturally remained one of the most recognizable connections to the royal family. From that perspective, observers have pointed to a series of moments. First came the aquamarine ring, then Diana's butterfly earrings, Cartier watch, and bracelets. Later came the Oprah interview, followed by the Netflix documentary series discussing their royal experience. Finally came the reported request for access to Al Thorpe and Diana's private archive. Supporters may see these moments as heartfelt tributes. Critics may view them differently. Either way, Charles Spencer remained the one person controlling access to Diana's original personal collection. For years, he reportedly declined every request. Then came the latest proposal. According to reports, he declined once again. Now we reach another important part of the story. Reports suggest Charles Spencer did more than simply reject the proposal. Royal commentators have increasingly pointed to the quiet understanding between Diana's brother and Prince William. William has long been reported to feel protective of his mother's legacy. But as the future king, any public attempt to oppose his brother's projects could easily be interpreted as palace interference and create another major royal controversy. Charles Spencer occupies a different position. He is not speaking as a future monarch or as Buckingham Palace. He is speaking as Diana's brother. That distinction matters. When Diana's own brother reportedly dismisses a proposal, it becomes much harder to frame the disagreement as institutional censorship. Instead, it appears as a family member expressing his own judgment about how Diana's memory should be protected. Some commentators believe that explains why William never needed to publicly intervene. Whether coordinated or not, many see William and Charles Spencer as reaching the same conclusion from different positions. One protects Diana's legacy as her son, the other protects it as her brother. Together, those two perspectives have shaped much of the discussion surrounding Diana's memory over the past 3 decades. The envoy speaks freely because he holds no official office. That is exactly the role Charles Spencer now occupies in this family conflict. He has public respect, blood ties to both princes, a unique connection to Diana's legacy, and no constitutional position. The palace cannot easily reject projects without creating controversy. William cannot publicly oppose Harry without fueling headlines. But Charles Spencer can reportedly say no with a few words, and the attention falls elsewhere. Then came another unexpected development. According to reports, Charles Spencer wrote to Prince William, encouraging the future king to address the growing divide between Prince Harry and the royal family. Reports suggest this was not simply about reconciliation. It was about protecting the long-term stability and public reputation of the monarchy. Spencer reportedly believed the family's continued silence allowed Harry and Meghan to dominate the public conversation, while the monarchy remained largely absent from it. Think about how significant that would be. Diana's brother, the same man who challenged the royal family during her funeral, is now reportedly encouraging William to defend the institution's public image. For many observers, that illustrates just how much family dynamics may have changed over the years. Meanwhile, the deeper family divide remains unresolved. Recent reports suggest members of the royal family may be willing to discuss some form of reconciliation with Prince Harry, while remaining far more cautious regarding Meghan Markle. Following reports of communication between Harry's representatives and King Charles's communications team, one issue reportedly continues to stand above all others: trust. According to several reports, concerns remain over whether private conversations could eventually become public through future interviews, documentaries, books, or other media projects. Whether those concerns are justified or not, they continue to shape the relationship. Some reports have even suggested Harry could eventually visit the United Kingdom alone if meaningful family discussions were ever to resume. King Charles has remained publicly silent despite reported attempts by Harry to rebuild communication. William and Catherine have also reportedly had no direct contact with Harry and Meghan for several years. That is where the family now stands. Before taking sides, though, both perspectives deserve consideration. Supporters of Charles Spencer and Prince William argue Diana's story has already been documented extensively over the past 3 decades. They believe turning another anniversary into a major commercial production risks overshadowing the personal significance of remembering her life. Others strongly disagree. Those who support Harry argue he has every right to tell his mother's story. Diana shaped both of her sons, and Harry carries memories that no documentary archive could ever replace. No one else experienced life with Diana from his perspective, and many believe those experiences belong to him as much as anyone else. Imagine standing in William's position. The most painful event of your childhood becomes the focus of another major production. Decisions are made in boardrooms, release dates are scheduled, marketing campaigns begin, and your family's private grief once again becomes worldwide entertainment. From that perspective, protecting Diana's legacy may feel like protecting something deeply personal. Now imagine standing in Harry's position. You lose your mother at a young age in front of the entire world. Every memory you carry is deeply personal, yet others suggest those memories should remain untold because they involve someone shared by millions. It is easy to understand why he may feel those experiences are also his story to tell. Neither position is easy. That may be why this disagreement extends far beyond a single documentary. At its heart, this is really about ownership. Who has the greater claim to Diana's story? Her brother, who has spent decades protecting her private archive, or her son, whose memories belong only to him? There may never be a simple answer. Perhaps the larger issue lies elsewhere entirely. The real debate is not simply about Althorp, Netflix, or the royal family. It is about the enormous commercial industry that has surrounded Diana's memory for nearly 30 years. Publishers, television companies, streaming services, documentaries, books, and anniversary specials have kept her story alive, and the demand has never disappeared. It is within that environment that Charles Spencer has reportedly spent decades refusing access to his family's private collection. According to reports, producers wanted access to Althorp, Diana's handwritten diaries, private home movies, and family archive for a major documentary planned around the 30th anniversary of her death. Reports suggest Charles Spencer rejected the proposal because of a deeply held commitment formed after the Panorama controversy. Having reportedly regretted introducing Diana to Martin Bashir, he has spent years ensuring her private life would not be open to the public again. Reports also claim Spencer later encouraged Prince William to defend the monarchy's public position rather than allow the wider narrative to remain unanswered. Whether that advice was followed or not, it reflects how seriously he reportedly views Diana's legacy and the way her story continues to be presented. That leaves one final question. Should Diana's legacy remain protected inside a private family archive, or does Prince Harry, as Diana's son, have every right to continue telling her story in his own way? There are thoughtful arguments on both sides, and people will likely continue debating this question for years to come. Share your opinion in the comments. I'd genuinely like to know where you stand. Whatever your conclusion, one thing is difficult to ignore. Diana's life has been discussed, analyzed, and revisited for nearly 3 decades. Yet some of the most personal parts of her story remain locked away at Althorp. Perhaps that silence has become a story of its own. In an age where almost everything is shared, sold, or streamed, Charles Spencer's decision to keep those private memories behind closed doors may be one of the most remarkable choices anyone connected to Diana has made. Whether you agree with Charles Spencer or Prince Harry, one thing is clear. Diana's legacy still carries enormous emotion nearly 3 decades after her death. The debate isn't ending anytime soon, and perhaps some questions will never have a final answer. What do you think? Was Charles Spencer right to keep Diana's private archive locked away, or should Harry have the right to tell more of his mother's story? Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. We truly appreciate your time and support. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support means a lot, and we'll see you in the next video.